Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm David Patton, and we're delighted to have with us today Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman, who's written a really fascinating new book, The Gift of Rest, Rediscovering the Beauty of the Sabbath. Good to have you with us again, Senator.
It's great to be back with you and Newsmax.
Thank you, sir. Can you share with us why a U.S. Senator writes a book not about politics or foreign policy, but rather about the Sabbath?
Yeah, well, this is, by my count, actually the seventh book I've been privileged to write, going back to the 60s. All the other books have been about history or government or politics. This one is very different, and in some ways it's something I've wanted to write for a long time, because the observance of the Sabbath has been so important to me and so wonderful to me and my family, that as we say in the title, The Gift of Rest, though it comes from a commandment, the fourth commandment God gave to Moses and the world on Mount Sinai, in my experiencing of it, it's really been a gift of rest, a gift of perspective. And what I try to do in this book is to explain what I do on the Sabbath and why I do it, why it's so satisfying and meaningful to me, why it makes the work that I do the 6 other days of the week so much easier and I think more full of purpose, and really to offer the gift of rest to everybody who will read this book, knowing that not everybody, of course, will observe it in the traditional Jewish way that I do, but regardless of one's religion, or frankly whether one considers oneself religious, that there's a powerful message and purpose to the Sabbath and the gift of rest, which is desperately needed in our world today, where people work so hard almost every day, and they yearn for meaning and find it hard to locate it in our popular culture. So I hope that when people read this book, in their own way, they will accept whatever their religion, or whether they have a religion, they will accept the gift of rest and bring it into their own lives. Maybe just deciding not to, for one day or part of one day, not to use their Blackberries or iPhones or iPads or to watch television, or to adopt some of the other rituals of the Sabbath, like blessing their children or spending quiet and personal time with their spouses. So that's why I wrote the book. In some really personal ways, I feel that the opportunity that I've had to write this book on the Sabbath may be one of the most significant opportunities I've had in my lifetime, because of how important I think the gift of rest is.
Well, now, speaking as a Christian, we've seen many denominations of our faith actually de-emphasize that fourth commandment for a day of rest. Would this be one example where perhaps we might benefit from absorbing a lesson from our Jewish brethren? And what would that specific insight be in your view?
Well, that's a really interesting and good question. You know, God gave the commandments to Moses on Mount Sinai, but they were not just given to the children of Israel. They were given to all of humankind. And there is a way, I've spent a lot of time talking particularly to Christian clergy about this, and Christian friends, about the extent to which a lot of Christians today don't observe the Sabbath, and in not observing the Sabbath, Sunday, lose something in their lives. So my own hope is that by going back to the origins of the Sabbath, that I touch into another key part of what we have traditionally called in America the Judeo-Christian tradition. Although, of course, again, the Sabbath is there for people who are neither Jewish nor Christian. But I do hope that the message will be felt particularly by Christians who can certainly identify, because, of course, all the Christian religions accept the truth of the Hebrew Bible.
I'm curious, what do you say to folks, and you must hear this a lot, who worry that there just isn't enough time in the day? That is, they say, hey, I can't afford to take a day of rest because I'll fall too far behind. You must hear that a lot.
Well, that's such a good question. And one of the things I say in the book, you know, I grew up religiously observant, Sabbath observant. I went away to college, and just like you're supposed to, I guess, I stopped observing the Sabbath, and I came back to it little by little. Came back to it with a real ultimate intensity. And one of the insights that, as I got busy, I had to appreciate, which is very important, is that truly none of us is indispensable 24/7. We may think so, but we're really not. And ultimately, if we decide to take a day of the 7, or even part of a day, and just pull back and thank God that we're alive, thank God for the creation, spend the time in prayer, spend the time with our families, it's going to be a lot more valuable. And that's a really important insight. I tell you, in the book I point out that though people tend to look at the 4th commandment and say, well, that's the commandment that tells us to honor the Sabbath day, to keep it holy, and to rest on the Sabbath. But that's only half of the 4th commandment. The other half is on 6 days, of the other 6 days of the week, we are commanded to work, to labor. If you will, just as God worked those first 6 days to create the heavens and the earth and all that's on it, and rested on the 7th day. And I found that I can work a lot more productively 6 days of the week because I know I will have the 7th day to rest and be with my family and friends and God.
Now, Senator, your book also talks about destiny, rediscovering destiny. How can the Sabbath day help us to rediscover our individual true destinies? And can it help us as a nation to renew our national sense of destiny as well?
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. I'll tell you, you've used probably my favorite word in the English language, which is destiny, which is that we have a purpose, we have a mission. Each of us has goals of our own. As groups, we have goals, and as a nation, we have a goal. I think the American destiny is best expressed in the Declaration of Independence, that we created, our founders created this government to secure the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that are the endowment of our Creator to each one of us. And that's the history of America, is to realize that destiny. I also quote a rabbi a lot in the book, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik. He's passed away now for some time, but he was a great scholar and teacher of modern Orthodox Judaism. And he described 2 covenants that God entered with people. One was the covenant of fate, F-A-T-E, which was with Abraham, the original covenant. And the second was with Moses on Mount Sinai and all who accept the commandments, and that was the covenant of destiny. So the covenant of fate is who we are. But the covenant of destiny is who we can make ourselves. That is the mission we accept to live by the commandments. And Sabbath, insofar as it honors creation, reminds us that we're not here by accident, that we're here as a result of an intentional act of creation by God, the force that we call God. But as I say in the book, there are 2 descriptions of the 10 Commandments. One is in Exodus, which focuses on the Sabbath day as a day to honor God's creation. The second is in Deuteronomy, and reminds us to observe the Sabbath, to remember that God helped liberate, God did liberate the children of Israel from Egypt, from slavery in Egypt. And the second, to me, has always said that, that God not only created, but, excuse me, remained prepared to re-engage in history. But ultimately, we, in accepting God and God's law, the commandments, have declared ourselves to be partners in realizing the destiny and the improvement of the human race, in some sense, in the most ideal and idealistic terms, to complete God's creation, to perfect the world. And all of that is present in our observance of the Sabbath as a reminder of what our mission is, even though probably no one of us will be able to see the completion of that mission in our lives. Nonetheless, we have a responsibility to try to advance toward that destiny. So that's very, very much at the heart of Sabbath observance.
Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman, author of the upcoming book, The Gift of Rest, which will be coming out in August. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsmax TV.
Great pleasure. All the best to you and all my friends at Newsmax.
And thank you for joining us on Newsmax TV.